I have learned in the midst of being scammed twice now majorly, I have not cursed these people. My grandmother used to always say, don't let people take you out of yourself, because then they have the control.
Whatever you focus on is magnified, as we say, right? So the way to make God bigger than your problem is to really not focus on the problem.
Right.
Have you been in a position where you're just about to lose your mind? Whether it's your finances, kids, your relationship, job, people are just getting on your nerves and the situation is just so overwhelming that you think you're about to just lose your mind. Well, today we're gonna go through 10 steps to keep you from losing your mind. I'm sitting here with my girl, Marneia Mitchell.
Hey, Chris. Hey, thank you.
It's such a pleasure to have you once again.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
Let us know what has been up with you since the last time we saw you.
I don't know why I came back. 2 weeks after the last show, I lost my job. I had lost one earlier in the year. Then I lost one 2 weeks after I did your last show. Came out of the blue, no notice. The blessing was I had a part-time job that became a full-time. But from that, things spiraled from getting out of a place where my rent costs too much to trying to get a guarantor to help me with an apartment. I was scammed to eventually just putting everything in storage and moving in with a coworker and her family to running over a construction bolt in the road from the city of Decatur roads and went through my wheel. And now my car is sitting at a shop waiting for a wheel to come from Germany. It just was one thing after the next.
So all hell.
Like, just call me, instead of Job, it's Jobetta. Because I tell you, it just didn't seem like it wanted to end.
Now, I will own a lot of stuff. I will own my stuff. Mm-hmm. But look, it is not our fault. No, but I know, Marneia, you have gone through hell and back. Just so much going on in your life. Yep. You talk about transition, losing jobs, and your car, and having to move, getting scammed, and all hell has been breaking loose. But Marneia, one thing I've noticed though is that, and I told you this, I said, hey, you've gone through a lot, and we're just gonna sling holy oil when you come here. So you might be slipping out to sea or whatever. But one thing I've noticed is that you have had just a wonderful attitude. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I would have gone through everything that you've gone through, because you gave us the hip hop version. Yeah. Right? I don't know if I would have had the smile on my face necessarily that you've had every time I've talked to you, and you've just had a positive outlook. And so today we're going to go through some of the steps that you went through and some of the steps that I've gone through over time to not lose our mind when all hell is breaking loose. Exactly. So you ready to do this with me?
I am ready to do this.
All right. So we're going to go through these steps. And I want you to let me know exactly, put your little color, your Marneia spin on it, your little color to it. Let me know what you think about these. So number one, remove negative talk and influences. Number one thing to do when you are going through hell and back to not lose your mind is to remove negative talk and influences. What do you think about that?
For me, this was one of the most crucial things. And essentially for me not to have negative talk for myself in the situation. Prime example, trying to get out of a super expensive apartment and just finding like how rubber hits the road. I was paying 2 times more than a place I wanted to go. But because of just lingering divorce, low credit score, whatever, I needed to have a guarantor to help me. Trusted somebody on just a review, and just in my heart, I just wanted to believe somebody wasn't going to be like negative. They weren't going to scam me. They weren't going to not come through on what they said they were going to do. And I just continued to believe it's coming. There's a lesson in this. It's coming. But still to take steps to do positive things, and to see, other things going on around me and other people's lives. Well, it's not that bad. It could be worse. And just to kind of keep my own level of hope. I mean, that's the only thing I could say. And then intentionally see God winks during the midst of the day. Good little, somebody calling for lunch, or somebody blessing me with gas, or just, somebody out of the blue thinking of me, and a check I wasn't expecting from a previous employer. And just to think, okay, God sees me. If he saw me in the midst of those things for those people to remember me, he sees me in this too. And I just had to keep a base level. If I say I believe how I believe, there was only so low I was going to allow myself to go, because how can I still be trying to move in a way, but then be negative at the same time? I'm contradicting myself.
Right. So you were intentional about just any type of negative influences or talks and just saying, look, I'm not going to.
I'm not receiving that. Yeah, I even had a loved one call me after he heard the news of me basically living with a coworker and her family, being like, "You're basically homeless," and it was a bit of a trigger because this was a beloved uncle. But I said, I bind that. I don't receive that. I'm not homeless. I just am living in a non-traditional environment right now, but I'm in a safe place. My dog is safe. My things are safe. So it's transitional and it's temporary. Yeah. And I think that's the main thing, is that this won't last always. Trouble doesn't last always, as the old folks used to say. And to know that I keep putting one foot in front of the other. I can't cry over spilt milk. I think, these old adages that our ancestors used to say are there for a reason. Water under the bridge, because it'll keep moving and it'll keep going. And we're not the only ones with drama and trauma.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, good deal. I appreciate that, because, removing negative influences and negative talk is really, I saw you do that, right? Yeah. And I saw you walk it out. And, even supporting you along the way, I just wanted to, encourage you and just say, hey, it's going to be all right. And you actually inspired me with the smile on your face, because I'm like, okay, all right, she going through right now, but, you don't want to be negative as a support system, but also seeing how you were intentional about that really, really gave me encouragement. Yeah. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
What's the next one?
Well, we're looking at recognize progress.
Wow. So recognizing progress for me, I think is important, because a lot of people look for the big win, the big steps. And I like to believe in the power of compound action, right? So there was an old movie that my mother used to watch called Women of Brewster's Place.
Oh, wow.
Right? It was Oprah Winfrey, way back in the day. And at the end of that movie, the women of this neighborhood, they were trying to tear down a wall, and they would just hit the wall, and it was just multiple actions. And so at some point it looked like the wall would not fall or it wouldn't crack, and the wall had been there for years. And then finally somebody hits the wall, and a big piece and a hole is now seen in the wall they can see through. And so I believe in compound action, because it was every hit actually made progress, right? And it didn't look like it, but every hit making progress. Now, when you look at it at the end of it, there's one hit that now everything falls. And people think that's the hit that made it, but it was all the other hits.
That's right.
Right, that did it. So it's like the progress of compound action. It's like recognizing progress, even the smallest wins, the smallest steps, and to know that, hey, I am making progress. And that helps you to really have a better attitude.
I would agree. Yeah. And I think also sharing where you are with other people, positive people, in that it's not about, people are talking about me or know my business. Of course, pick your tribe carefully and with whom you share what. But those folks who may know somebody who can ask something, and action is so critical and key. And it's one little thing every day, and to celebrate it, even if it was just, I got a call back from a place, even if it was a negative, somebody heard my plea and my cry, it just, okay, I can try this again. And knowing if something worked for you in the past, it's not a wrong thing or a bad thing. Let me try this in addition to adding something new to my arsenal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Good deal. So the third one we got, serve someone else. Serve someone else. So this is interesting. What do you think about that?
In the midst of going through the situation where I'm, living with a family, the serving someone else, I took myself back to a time where in the midst of my then marriage, a family member came and lived with us for 73 days and contributed very little. I brought that to the forefront.
Is that why you know how long they stayed?
Yeah. The boy. Oh, Lord. So I made it intentional. Okay, I've mentioned this time and again. So I have my opportunity to be on Front Street now. So what am I going to do differently? So I knew the type of special creamer my host liked. So if I'm out and about, I picked it up for her because it wasn't available in every grocery store. The special type of coffee with chicory. So I picked that up because I'm not being made to pay rent. It's a blessing and a grace. So, being able to watch their little one while they go out on a date night, I offer, don't pay me, don't even bring me a meal back. I've got this because you're helping me. So it literally has given me the opportunity to see areas and check myself. Like if somebody else were in that predicament, and they were contributing, would my heart have been as generous as somebody else?
Wow.
So I think in the midst of all of my stuff, there's still opportunity to learn lessons. And I've opened myself up for that. And in serving and giving, I've also been receiving.
And I've also heard, and I've experienced too, serving others takes the focus and the attention on what you're going through.
Yes, very much so. Right. It makes it, you know what, it's just a different kind of day. Yeah. It's not necessarily one I'd be jumping up and down about, the sunshine versus the rain, but you get both in life. Right. And I think you need both in life for a balanced life to a degree.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, good deal. Yeah. Okay. Well, we got number 4.
Well, we're almost there. Give thanks.
Wow.
That thanks. Sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're going through, right? My mother used to tell me, there's always somebody worse off than you.
Amen, brother.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I used to look for that person, you know, and be like, thank you, brother. Right. You know, right. Worse off than me.
Yeah.
But it wasn't about that. It was really, I think she was trying to get me to be grateful for where I was and what I did have.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I try to do every single day is, I always wake up and the first thing I say is, thank you, Father.
Wow.
Thank you, Lord. Right. For waking me up. And then I go through, what am I thankful for? Like, what am I grateful for in this moment? And I do that early in the morning. And I mentioned this on another podcast, but I do that early in the morning because when I do it early in the morning, it helps set the tone for the day.
Exactly.
And it puts me in a mode to where I'm now looking to be thankful. Right. And so I can pinpoint certain things and say, okay, today this happened. I'm thankful that Marneia, is on this show. I'm thankful for the people that's supporting. I'm thankful for this, and so it allows me to go through the day looking for opportunities of Thanksgiving as opposed to being reactive and thinking about, oh, what am I thankful for today? And using the same, I'm thankful for breath, right? No, let's go deeper. Yeah. Let's give thanks and really just open up and just, have a heart of thanksgiving.
And that's a great point, the depths. During this time, January 2nd, kind of through the present, a lot of that depth for me was I literally had a cousin drop dead one morning. She got up, she'd just gotten back from Rome, had a great time with her very talented son and his band that had the honor of playing for the Pope for New Year's, and was back. I had just talked to her the Thursday prior about other family in the Los Angeles area to check and see if their homes were safe from the fires. Thankfully, they had sold that home in Anaheim that burned, but they weren't there. They were not in harm's way. And we laughed, told her I loved her. And then I get a call like a few days later that she literally had dropped dead of a heart attack that morning. And it affected me and hit me in such a way. And she's someone who loved life and was such a giver and so creative. And in the midst of all that I'm going through, I was just like, wow, I'm still here for some reason. And yet this joy and this light was taken.
So you point to something though, because, give thanks. Sometimes it's hard for people to be thankful when they're going through, right? And you just brought a major challenge. Instantly losing someone that is so unexpected. So, how can you be thankful when you're going through?
I think the one thing I went back on with her in particular was that we had just spoken and we had laughed, and I told her that I loved her and same. And we didn't see each other that often, but she was always such a giver and she was so non-judgmental. And whenever we got together, I just felt such unconditional love from her. And I chose to honor that. And that's where I found the most thanks, in that I got that from her no matter what. And I chose to, if it makes sense, to shower that on myself at this time. Not to be judgmental about the position that I'm in. Because yes, I had a part to play in some of the things that have happened. However, I chose just to go forth, showing love like she would, and just knowing that, the time that I had with her and the times that we shared were so incredibly beautiful. Yeah. And just to have a great feeling about that and to focus on her young son, her 19-year-old son that's left and making sure then I can give back and be in his life in some way.
And that's something you mentioned about what you focus on, right? It's like, a lot of times we may be going through in one area of our lives or maybe two areas. Right. But if you really are honest, like, is life terrible or are we going through hell in every area of life? And I don't know if I've ever been going through hell in every area of life to where I couldn't give thanks, right? And if I was, let's just say I was, one of the first things that I try to do to have a attitude of gratitude is to just say thank you. Yeah. Find somebody to say thank you to. And like, for example, if I'm at a restaurant and, I've been in restaurants and I have been in a depressed state and the waiter is bringing over certain things and just a simple thank you. Yeah. Thank you for that. Or somebody open my door. Thank you. It starts putting you in an attitude of gratitude.
It truly does. And to be grateful even that some people right now, I mean, as expensive as things are, they can't even sit at a table to be served by someone. Yeah. And to recognize, the difference in, cost of living for somebody. And I think, it's kind of like a cheap way of getting by, but it's like you could always be worse. But I think when it's like what you focus on expands. Yeah. So focusing on something that you desire versus what you're in, and it's not necessarily a fake it till you make it, but it's that, it could be a lot worse. Somebody smiled at me. Somebody let me in the midst of awful traffic. Before I've gotten to a gas tank and there was actually money on it. I was like, oh my gosh, somebody prepaid and pulled off or whatever. I mean, just small good things. Yeah. And I call them God winks. Yep. And just to like expand on the good things that happen. And I think literally you draw to yourself more of that, even in the midst of whatever else is happening.
Yeah. So you got to choose to
You have to choose to focus on that. Yeah. And not saying that the bad won't come, but it's like, you know what? I'm still breathing. I have great health. The sun's going to rise tomorrow and another step forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Is it my turn or your turn? My turn.
I think it's my turn. Is it my turn? I think it's my turn.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So number 5, we have pause, meditate, pray. Ooh. What's your take on that?
Pause, meditate, and pray. One, I believe in slowing down.
Okay.
Right? Slowing life down. I think of the Matrix, right? That bullet time. It's like,
okay, Keanu, right?
Yeah, just slowing life down and just taking a pause. Taking a pause allows you to really ask yourself some key questions, right? How am I feeling right now? And, how do I want to respond right now? Is this appropriate right now? And start weighing the consequences of whatever, the benefits or consequences to whatever you decide. But, a lot of times, I know growing up, I was told meditation was spooky. Ooh, right. Ooh, if you're a Christian, don't meditate, right. And I think that's the craziest thing because I have a daily practice of meditation and prayer. Okay. And I said meditation and prayer. So,
do you do that in the mornings?
In the morning.
Okay. First thing.
There's sometimes I do it both.
Okay.
There's sometimes when all hell is breaking loose, I will stop, pause, and meditate and pray.
There you go.
Right? Depending on what it is. So, but my daily practice is always I wake up, I have a period of meditation and prayer. And I pray first, and then I go into a period of meditation of just relaxing before I get the kids up and get them off to school and really just picturing how I want the day to go.
There you go.
And picturing not just how I want the day to go, how I want to feel throughout that time at the end of the day. For example, the other day I was like, you know what? There's a lot going on, but today I want to feel accomplished, right? And so
you set your intention.
I set my intention through meditation. When there's a lot going on, I may stop and I may say, okay, let me just meditate for 5 minutes, just quiet everything, the room, and not answer the phone, not answer anything, and just put on some music and just meditate and just breathe and just relax. A lot of times it gets rid of the anxieties, right? And I continue to pray, God, help me in this particular situation. So I believe that pausing, meditating, and prayer can be used at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of your day to even help you get rest and prepare your body for rest.
And I think in critical times, in the midst of being scammed for an apartment, moving in with a coworker, then eventually getting an apartment on my own, I had gone on an application and paid for in full, my error, been scammed basically on getting a Murphy bed. And I'm at my place, I've got a rental van, I'm on the clock waiting for them to come. And I was scammed. You know, they didn't show up, didn't respond to me, anything. And I started to have a panic attack. And I was like, God, I've gotten this far. I know you're in it. I literally just had to drop to my knees and just pray and take deep breaths and just say, you know what? It's not the end of the world. I got to keep on with my day. I've got time constraints, other good things to happen. And I just had to do that to silence myself. And then I just got up, locked the door, got in the van and kept it rolling. And I think sometimes everything's crushing in on us. I mean, it's, you know, middle of the day, beginning of the day, end of the day, anytime, you know, if it's something happens at work or you get news wherever, pull the car over, say a quick prayer at work, go to the bathroom, get on your knees in a stall, or not on your knees, but close enough, you know, not in the stall at work. Yeah. but, you know, even if it's the elevator and push hold, whatever, where you have to get to a quiet place. And just get your breathing set, get a drink of water, hydrate yourself is important, get your thoughts together, think of good things, and just keep it moving. It's not the end of the world. It may feel like you've just been targeted and it's just you. It's not a great feeling, but just think of something good and just keep it moving. And I said a quick prayer for the person. I said, I pray they need this money and it does them some good. I have learned in the midst of being scammed twice now majorly, I have not cursed these people. My grandmother used to always say, don't let people take you out of yourself because then they have the control. So I haven't cursed. Now I have said you're evil, you're unprofessional, this is dishonest. I've said those things and she got the meaning. But I've just let it go. I've just had to let it go because what we focus on expands and we draw that same thing right back to us. And I don't have that leisure for that, any more of that type of energy.
Yeah. I found that prayer, meditation, that's been my go-to, right, in my toughest times. Right. And it has really worked wonders for me. And so that's one that I just hang my hat on.
Yeah.
So Indeed. What about number 6? Get active, walk, or work out.
So crucial. I mean, I think in the midst of our minds being so active, a lot of times I found my mind is most active when I am the most still physically. So if I get up, like when I lost my job right after I saw you in September, I made a ritual of getting up first thing in the morning, walking 2 miles with my dog and just breathing, listening to a podcast, you know, calling a family member, an elderly family member who couldn't get out and say, I love them. Just, you know, going by and maybe picking up a little muffin or something just to have somebody else to talk to because I was at home. And then middle of the day, I'd do another walk in a different direction. But I think it's so crucial. And I found when my mind is like focused on the birds and literally something outside or even walking in the rain sometimes. I mean, when things are bad, it's like to be emotionally drained, drenched, pulls you outside of yourself even more.
I'm going to date myself. I saw you walking in the rain. Orange juice jars, man. So loud. When you said that, I was like, I can see Marneia walking in the rain.
Here we go. I don't know if that was a sister or maybe she had braids. Right. The hair thing. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, that part. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I definitely, you know, that's one thing that I've been trying to get some of my friends to do, like get active, you know, and it really just strengthens, you know, your mental, you know, focus, you know, capabilities and everything. And I like to work out every morning. Okay. Right. And you don't have to do a long workout, right? Walking, I like to run. But I I'm not one of those people that's in the gym like for 2 hours. No,
Right.
I'm in there 45 minutes tops, in and I'm out. That includes stretching, everything. And that's another thing that I've made a habit of doing. As we get older, I stretch.
That's true.
Gotta stretch, wake up, stretch, hydrate, all of those things. It helps get your mind going, and it produces, the endorphins and all of that we need. And it's just really helpful from a mental standpoint. So I'm one that I work out at least 3 to 4 times a week. And I have friends that I'm always encouraging them, go take a walk, go work out, man. Your gut is, I tell people like, look, man, don't call me, when you die, because have you ever, carried a fat person's casket? It's heavy, you know what I'm saying? So go work out. Yeah. And so it just really helps us from a mental standpoint.
That's so true. So true.
Next up, I think it's your turn.
Oh, let's see. Disconnect from social media.
Now, I'm good at this.
Okay.
Because real talk, I don't like it anyway.
Okay.
I always make a practice of disconnect. I go out there when I have to, and because I can't continue to feed myself that, and especially with all the things people will send me, and I'm laughing, and I will get up and start scrolling and getting jokes and everything like that, and then next thing you know, an hour has gone by,
right?
And I'm like, I could have done so much.
It's amazing how quickly that happens.
So I just disconnect just from a time management standpoint, and because I don't want it flooding my brain. Now, some people I know may be addicted to it. I'm not addicted to social media, but I'm addicted to a game on my phone.
Oh, wow.
And I have to do a better job of disconnecting from that.
Okay.
And full transparency, the game is called Royal Match.
Okay, really?
Yes. And I have not met anybody that has passed me on any level yet.
That's the king that's got to get through the maze and the different challenges.
People tend to take screenshots or pictures of my phone because I'm at level 10,400 something. Wow. So I have actually beat the game to continue. Okay. I got to update. Right? Okay. So that lets you know I got a problem.
Maybe it's therapy though for you. You keep winning.
Yeah, but I need to disconnect sometimes. So that's just, mine is not social media. Yeah. Mine is Royal Match. Yeah. Right. So I have beat the king of Royal Match.
I've used social media at times like this for motivation. And then I have some podcasts that I choose to listen to that are motivational, or even when we talked about movement, just really quick TikTok videos or YouTube videos or exercises that I can just do in a moment's notice. So I use that for myself. I don't think I sit and I listen, because I've got a counter on my phone that lets me know how many hours a week I've actually been online. And when that pops up, sometimes it's just so embarrassing. I'm like, I spent how much time where? And so I make it a challenge to reduce that week by week by week. So that's something that, I've tried to challenge myself with in the midst of all this.
You need to help me. Yeah. Shut up, phone. Yeah. I'm just going through. Yeah. Oh, cool. The next one we have, and you sort of talked about this, is change your talk. Things happen for you and not to you.
That's one to kind of pull apart. When I ran over that bolt in the car, and then I looked to my left, and there was a Goodyear tire place right there. And so I anchored right over, parked, put the key through the slot, thinking it's just a flat tire. Had no idea it was a bolt that had gone through tire and wheel. So I thought, okay, I've got my new place now. I'm ready to move. Didn't happen in Stockbridge, where the memorial service had been for my cousin the morning of. It was in a city with lights. So I was like, okay, that's a good thing. I'm in front of a car place. That's a good thing. They sell tires. That's a good thing. So I'm checking off all the good things. But then I'm like, I still can't get out of my friend's house. Like, I'm ready to go. And so I had to say, okay, there's still something else for me to learn. There's still a lesson for me to get from this. So I just looked at it, what was the for me thing. And it was something the other day where literally the family has been so kind to me, where the husband was like, hey, we're going to dinner later on tonight. If you're available, we're welcome to come to it. It's a Valentine's family dinner. And it touched me so, because I discovered another love language that I didn't think I had. As an only child growing up with my grandmother, when I'd go home at holidays, family wouldn't necessarily invite me to the things they were doing. they would just go and do it. But I had a room and the key to come and go at the house, but I wasn't necessarily always included. Like I might not be interested, or they just didn't operate that way. So for them to stop and think, hey, you're coming too. I was just like, I teared up a little bit, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm like, okay, the lesson continues. I'm still learning something. So I'm not thinking of it as a negative. They're not rushing me away. But I know, okay, this time here there have been lots of lessons for me to learn. So that's the way I've chosen to look at it.
And you've got to be intentional, very intentional in that moment, right? To say, okay, God, what can I get out of this, right? No matter what. Even when you gave the example of, your relative dying and passing away, right after you talked to her, right? So you have to be really intentional about grabbing for that moment and saying, okay, what can I listen? And so, or what can I learn from this?
Right.
And so it's not one of those moments, where it's that easy.
Correct.
Right? It just really takes a lot of intentionality. And once you do it once, you do it twice, you start to get into a habit and a routine.
Correct.
And it becomes a part of you.
And I think growth happens then too. Yeah. I don't necessarily think that much growth happens in the good times. We can celebrate, we can enjoy, and our senses are there. But I think in the quote unquote bad times, or when all hell is breaking loose in our lives, the heat and the fire, I think being so much more intentional, and our minds are so much open because we're in an uncomfortable place. So I think the lessons stick better.
Yeah.
And I really just think and look at the kindness of people who aren't necessarily professed Christians, and they don't look like you and me, but they have been genuine and real and true. And I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
And it's really gotten me a bird's eye view of how people are living, and not to be so judgmental.
Yeah.
And even, in my perspective of things, even while I was there, the husband's father had his vehicle repossessed because of, some loans they owe on another investment they've done that hasn't necessarily panned out. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they're 20 more years older than me, and they're having bad stuff happen to them. And he turned to me, he's like, see, Marneia, it doesn't end. It's just not you.
Yeah.
And it just made it more real for me, because I think as a single individual, I've just only been in my world and what's been around me, but to see that it is real life happening to everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Good deal.
So for you, number 9, make God bigger than your problem.
Making God bigger than your problem. I think this one we sort of touched on because on what you focus on, right? Whatever you focus on is magnified, as we say, right? So the way to make God bigger than your problem is to really not focus on the problem, right? And to understand through, self-talk and through understanding, I won't say, I try to assume that everybody knows the word of God, but they don't.
They don't.
Right. So, but getting around listening to podcasts and those types of things that can actually feed you the word of God. There are just different things that I do in thinking of making God bigger than my problem, right? Just trying to extract the lessons, prayer, meditation. God, what is it you want me to get from this? God, who can I even help while I'm going through this, right? Because if I'm going to make God my bigger than my problem, I'm going to focus on him and what he wants me to do. Even when I feel overwhelmed, I don't have time or anything like that, I just turn to God and say, God, in this moment, I have this amount of hours. I have to do X, Y, Z. Show me what it is you want me to focus on, to prioritize, so that I can be successful in your eyes. And that is a prayer that I pray in the midst of, all hell breaking loose, when I feel overwhelmed, so that I don't continue to feel overwhelmed. It's like, hey, God, I need your help.
Right.
So I know you're a helper. I know you can help me. I know you can give me direction. So I'm going to lean on you to do so. So it's really just focusing on God for who he is and God to direct you at that moment. And so that's how I focus on God and make him bigger than my problem.
Right. And I think, Chris, by you being an obedient steward with that, by you taking that assignment of focusing on what he wants you to focus on, I think somehow quietly shows you're still you, his child, his son, outside of that problem. In the midst of all this, and I was never one to rely on somebody. It's like, dropping off a rental vehicle, somebody coming to pick me up and relying on them and calling instead of calling an Uber. It really has been like, oh my gosh, I've immersed myself in allowing people to see my trauma, my drama, my issues, my faults. But when I get into the vehicle with said person, they had some awful words with an in-law. Mm-hmm. So I'm counseling them in the midst of my stuff, helping them see another way they could have done something. So in allowing, God, okay, you're showing me how to be less selfish. You're showing me how to be more giving in the midst of all the stuff I'm going through. Mm-hmm. You're showing me how to counsel and help somebody else and have a tone. Well, I'm an outsider. They will hear me outside of those familiar voices around them. So I'm taking that assignment on, and he's showing me I can hold more than I think I can. Mm-hmm. So my vessel is expanding, and it wasn't hardened. Mm-hmm. It's just in a growing position.
Right.
And it's funny, as I'm counseling somebody else, I'm also counseling myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And you're getting what you need.
Exactly.
In that moment.
And I'm like, Eureka, right.
Yep,
Yeah.
Exactly what you
need. Yeah.
The last one I think is so important. Seek help.
But let me say, it's not that easy. And I think in the midst of this whole experience, it's hard, I think. You can tell people a little bit of something, mm-hmm. but then to tell them all the things and pull back the full cover on everything, it's extremely vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And it's just a gift to have people around you that receive you as you are, and not to pacify you.
Right.
I mean, to call a spade when something is really wrong and something is up, but also people who can offer you aid and assistance. Mm-hmm. I had a beloved relative call who basically was like, well, you're homeless and da-da-da-da. And the way he was talking, it was to dump his worry on me as opposed to how can I help you?
Right.
And it was triggering and it was hurtful, but I was able to put a boundary up and was like, no, I'm not homeless. I am in a transition and I'm moving to the next phase. It's not a traditional way to go. So I chose where I was going to get the help from that. I knew he meant love, but it wasn't a helpful conversation. Mm-hmm. Whereas other people, Marneia, it's a transition. We've all gone through it, and you're going to move to the next da-da-da-da-da. And they can offer help or offer a place to go or who to call. And I know God sees me just because of the people that have been in my life that have just, I haven't heard from them in ages, and here they are calling, emailing, whatever. And it's just been such a grace.
It's funny you mentioned that, because it brought me to a time, well, when I was just going through one of my lowest points. Mm-hmm. And I called a relative, and, I felt like I'd been wronged by somebody, and, it just really hurt me. And the relative, I'm trying not to tell which relative it is, but he was just so angry, right? And he was just so worried and concerned, and he was just dumping on me he was going through it.
Yes. Yeah.
And I had to be careful. I had to set that boundary, like you said, because I didn't want his emotional response to be my emotional response. Right. And I'm like, dude, man, I'm not even there, and I'm going through it. So, is this even really real? Or are you just acting because you think you're supposed to be this upset? Mm-hmm. It's like, you know what? I don't need this. This is not the help that I need. I need to be more mindful of, positive, people speaking positivity and life into me, speaking the word of God into me. And so this whole angry thing, angry black man, and let's go fight. Like, man, you ain't gonna fight, man. It's like, I don't even want to do that.
Don't feel guilty when you set your boundary up.
Right.
Because I think for some people, depending on who that person is that calls us, we've reverenced them for so long, or they've been such a stabilizing feature in our lives that we feel like we can't put boundaries up. Right. And when we do for the first time, it can be a little shaky and unnerving. I think it's the language we use, and it's knowing that, you know what, you need to focus on yourself right at this point in time. And if there's no ill intent coming from you, but you're just simply protecting as much as you can contain right now, you can't hold any more. And you're going in a different direction.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Marneia, that is our top 10 things to do to keep from losing your mind. So no matter what's going on in your life, finances, you've gone through finance, transition, and scam, and car, and everything you can think of. And we've both just shared some experiences. And I just want to commend you, Marneia. You have truly walked this out. You're still walking it out as you're going through different things. So I just want to thank you. One of the things that I think that to sum it all up is that if I were to really look at what we were saying, it was like, one, you have the opportunity to choose, right? Whether or not you're going to, just go crazy, right? So number one, it's a choice. And number two, your inputs, what you take in will definitely shape your perspective, and your perspective will really serve as the anchor for the peace that you're going to have or not going to have. Right. And so I heard the choice. I heard that, your inputs is important, but also what you focus on, what you decide to focus on. And we gave a few tricks on how to, just some cheat codes, right? Like saying thank you and showing gratitude, or going to serve others naturally puts you in a proper mindset to really help you go out and really conquer the challenges. And so, I want to thank you for everything that you've given. I want to thank you for the support that you've given the show. I want to also congratulate you for everything that you're doing and for just pushing through. And just as we're closing, just let the people know where they can find you.
Well, thank you again for having me, Chris. You called me out of the blue as well. That was one of those great phone calls. But I'm available at Gravely Mitchell on IG. And so this is real. I mean, I can't explain it sometimes. It's just, I just bust out laughing. You just have to keep a vibrant, hopeful personality, and it's important to keep moving.
Right.
You can't sit there and stew in the thing. There's a responsibility we have to take for ourselves, but just to keep moving and keep asking for help. And there are good, great people out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So thanks again, Marneia. Y'all, I want to thank y'all for coming and checking us out on the When All Hell Breaks Loose podcast. I'm Chris King. We've had our guest, Marneia Mitchell. Go check us out on all the streaming platforms. Also on our website, When All Hell Breaks Loose podcast. Go out, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, even tell your enemies, but tell them with love to come check us out. Like us, subscribe us. Also, make sure that you get with some people that will walk this out with you, that will speak positivity into your life. And I know that you can also get through, because life is worth living, and so are you. Y'all be blessed.